do you think the philosophies of the libertarian, you would still consider yourself a libertarian today? Yes, would you consider yourself a libertarian?
Yeah, I used the word, but there are ways to qualify. You know, even within the Libertarian Party, there are libertarian leaning type or conservative leaning,
Right.
yes, but I still call libertarians is the best term that I use. Although because some people think that's a negative term, I frequently will use a freedom and liberty, but libertarian. You know, as soon as they put the IAN on there, people are saying, "Oh, you're just a libertarian." So I use it, but I don't know if you said, "Do I call myself a libertarian?" I do.
Okay, so whenever I see IAN at the end, I think about Armenians because I'm half Armenian, so I think about libertarian in a different way. But the reason why I asked that question is: do you think the libertarian philosophies would be very difficult to do for a company as big as ours, a country as big as ours, where it would be a good philosophy to start off a nation with? So even if somebody like you got in, it would be very hard to get it to the levels that you would like it to get to. Because to get it to the levels that you'd like it to get to, it's a massive disruption to the system, no?
The reason you give for not doing it and it wouldn't work is the reason why I want it, because it is too big. You can't manage this government. You have see for me, all activity, social, religious, sexual, international, every activity should be voluntary. Both sides have to have a voluntary agreement to what they're doing. That's what happens in the marketplace, and there's a lot of that left, but there's a lot of corruption in it too because there's so much regulation. So this stuff about how do you do it with this mess we have? Well, yeah, I think we have to get rid of it. And the founders knew exactly what they were doing by trying to prevent this. But how many people and how many times you hear them talking about Article 1, Section 8 and Amendment number 10? They mention it, but it's not very sincere. I remember one time after a debate for the presidential thing, a student came up to me and he was very pleased. He said, "Boy, I understand what you mean and all this stuff." And I said, and he was praising me, and I said, "Well, and I was curious." Because somebody at that particular night after me, he spouted off how dedicated he was to the Constitution. And when I look at what they do, 98% or 80% of all that happens in Washington is technically immoral and illegal under the Constitution. I said, "Well, why don't you go talk to him?" He says, "Well, I didn't believe him." So he was spouting the delight of the Constitution, but to hear this college kid, I thought it was astounding that all of a sudden I said something, he said something, but so that's what I got impressed with young people. I think young people have a room in their brain to still accept, some of the newer ideas and understanding or renewal of an idea of liberty, and so I think I think it's wonderful that young people will look at it that way, but it's terrible. I still think it can be boiled down to what was readily apparent through all of history of natural law and government law, and even before we had civilization. There were a lot of rules. The main rules of natural law: you can't lie, cheat, steal, or kill. And that's been known from way back. I mean, that was even before they had printing presses. They knew those were the laws. They were done imperfectly, but as a natural law, people know that, and they know it now, but they overcome it by justification. Oh, but we need it. Somebody is going to be poor, and they won't have any food. Yeah, I am convinced that if you want to have the maximum amount of peace and prosperity, you want to have the most minimum amount of government, because there's this tendency that people who accept the idea that you can use force and it not be something that's immoral, they would go ahead and do it. So that's why governments grow, and you can't shrink them. they will end themselves, and just like the wars end.
So you said governments grow and you can't shrink them. So how do you shrink today's?
Really believe.
So do you think President Trump and Musk are making progress in shrinking the government today?
I think what they're doing philosophically and calling all this to our attention is the most important, because it's already, look at the resistance they're getting. And yes, if you could have something here and there, but the approach right now, I say, well, maybe it'll work with the Department of Education. It isn't to just shrink it, it's to get it out of the federal government. At least that would be moving in one direction, and put it all on the states and say, oh, wouldn't there be terrible education and all this? And that's just, I just don't buy into that. I think the bigger it is, the more centralized it is. And if you can't do it at the city level, you go to the state level, then they think that doesn't work because there's too much corruption. So they go to the federal government. Oh, then they go to the UN and NATO and say, well, the world is too complex. You can't let people make those kind of decisions. We have to have smart people go to these international organizations and sort things out. And all it does is lead to the bad guys taking over. But I think what Musk is doing is great. But I see it as an educational thing, because, quite frankly, I am not expecting the budget deficit to shrink this year nor the next year, because there's too many people who have become dependent on it. They want it, and there'll be some pain and suffering, and that's where the real problem is.
So you think it's going to take a couple of years? Nothing 2025 and nothing 2026. No budget cuts.
There'll be budget cuts, but I don't think you'll see the deficit go down. No, I don't think 1 or 2 years is going to solve the problem. But if people have all of a sudden changed things, people's attitudes have to change. One best recent example, I think this point about attitudes have to change is more education and morality, was what happened under COVID. I mean, from my viewpoint as a physician and a libertarian, I thought that was so atrocious, and what was done just because the government bureaucrats was going to deny a lot of people medications that the people decided they wanted to take, and we'll put them in nursing homes and take care of them, and then finally 82% of them died. This sort of thing. So I think that we have to move in that direction. During COVID, the people woke up. The parents went to PTA meeting, and people. It was to me, it was the most ridiculous thing to live through for 2 or 3 years. We're still suffering the consequence. How much money did Trump spend? The deficits were horrible under those conditions. Oh, but this is an emergency. So there'll be an emergency this year, believe me. There will be an emergency, and there'll be somebody that's ready to invade Florida. So we'll have to mobilize, and there'll be another epidemic and that kind of stuff. So I think
sound optimistic. You don't sound optimistic.
No, I'm the most optimistic person in the world, because I think where we've made our progress is in this idea of understanding what is going on. I mean, Austrian economics it just came alive since World War II. Progressivism and socialism. How about the 19th century, and that's been around a long time. But I think the Mises Institute and the various institutions, and that's why I spend a lot of time in education, to try to explain this, because when the people became aware of what was happening, finally habit had changed. Okay, what about war? How did the people woke up, and people finally were, figured it out that Vietnam War was insane. 78,000 or 68,000 Americans killed for no reason at all. And we're still participating in wars all over the world. And we say, well, yeah, but no Americans died. But our bombs are killing people, whether it's in Ukraine or the Middle East or Yemen. It's all our bombs, and that's a moral issue because the people sit by and say, I don't even know where Yemen is. I don't care, and I want to know whether my Social Security check is coming. So that's going to exist. That's not going to go away. But I think the philosophy of a lot of people outside our university system, whether it's the Mises Institute or the other various groups, because there's a lot of good groups, I think that there's a big positive thing. When I went to, even in the last 2 or 3 decades, when I went to Congress in 1976, I mean, they looked at me and they never, what are you doing? There's 2 of you up there voting. You're voting with a radical left-wing person, but they didn't understand the philosophy of liberty and why if you're going to have liberty, you can't have it, in one area, social sexualism, but not in economic things. And I think that philosophy is alive and well. And when I go to college campuses and the ones I went to campaign, I was excited about what is there and is still there. And I think you even mentioned a positive thing when we started. There's a lot of people, and I don't hardly understand it because there's a lot of people still talking about some of those issues I talked about, 10 years ago. So I'm very optimistic about that, but realistic about, was this an easy battle? No, it is not.
The reason why I said, are you optimistic, is because you said you're going to see there's going to be an epidemic, or there's going to be something that someone's going to need money for us to print money. Florida, you said, watch, there's going to be a situation for us to spend money. That's what you're saying, right? That's
right, because that'll keep coming and that'll keep being our problem. And I don't think non-interventionism is far enough along to stop all that, because we're too slow. We finally stopped wars like Vietnam. We finally stopped COVID, but we need to stop that before they start.
How do you do that?
Founders understood it.
How do you do that?
Well, I think probably read the education of our founding fathers. It's unbelievable, and there were no universities to brainwash them, basically, and they also they didn't have the system. They didn't go to government schools. But boy, I'll tell you what, I am impressed with the education they achieved, and historically they knew something about Greek history and Roman history, the whole works. And liberty just hasn't been recently invented, but it's evolved over these years. And I think we've made tremendous progress in the last 3 or 4 decades. But it's a long way to go. I'm a realist because I understand human nature pretty well, because there's this overrunning overriding issue that people do want a free lunch. And if they have the free lunch, they certainly don't want it taken away. And that's what we're witnessing now. There's a lot of resistance out there, and the universities are still plugged with the people teaching the philosophy they gave it. Oh yeah, boys can go. What is it? Boys can become girls, yeah, and set Olympic records. Well, for me, as a physician and a libertarian, that's sort of nutty.
No, I'm with you on that part. So this is why I asked you the question earlier when I said, do you think to fully get the libertarian philosophies in there, it's tough to do when America is this big? You can talk about it, but it's easier to do to start a country. Nowadays, more than ever, the brand you wear reflects and represents who you are. So for us, if you wear a Future Looks Bright hat or a Valuetainment gear, you're telling the world, I'm optimistic, I'm excited about what's going to be happening, but you're a free thinker, you question things, you like debate. And by the way, last year, 120,000 people got a piece of Future Looks Bright gear with Valuetainment. We have so many new things. The cufflinks are here. New Future Looks Bright. This is my favorite, the green one. Just yesterday, somebody placed an order for 100 of these. If you watch the PBD podcast, you got a bunch to choose from. White ones, black ones. If you smoke cigars and you come to our cigar lounge, we have this high quality lighter cutter and a holder for the cigars. We got sweaters with the Valuetainment logo on it. We got mugs. We got a bunch of different things. But if you believe the future looks bright, if you follow our content and what we represent with Valuetainment, with PBD Podcast, go to vtmerch.com. And by the way, if you order right now, there's going to be a special VT gift inside just for you. So again, go to vtmerch.com, place your order, tell the world that you believe the future looks bright. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.